Hi there! Welcome to this month's edition of Little Explorers. Today we're at Hand Hollow and we're going to be talking about nests and dens and animal homes. And I hope you enjoy this edition. This month's Little Explorer book is Who's Home? An Animal Lift the Flap book by Nisi Twineman, published by Grasset and Dunlap in New York. We are going to look for animal homes. Animal homes. Let's look to see who's home. Let's look in the wild berries. The wild berries. Who is living there? Who do you think's there? A teeny tiny mouse eating little berries. Let's look in the little hill. The little hill. Who is living there? Marching red ants. You see them marching? Let's look in the high grass. The high grass. Who is living in the high grass? Do you see little ears poking out? A fluffy cottontail rabbit. Let's look in the twig nest. The twig nest. Who is living there? A nesting red robin. We might see some of those today as we walk around. Let's look in the stone wall. The stone wall. Who's living there? A cheeky chipper chipmunk. So cute. Let's look at the big hive. The big hive. Who is living there? Busy buzzy honeybees. Look at them all buzzing in their hive in the big tree and going to visit flowers to get pollen. Let's look in the soft mud. The soft mud. Who is living there? My favorite, a slow bulky box turtle. They burrow down into the mud to stay cool. Oops. It's windy here today. I can't turn the page. Let's look in this wooden lodge. Wooden lodge. Who do you think's living there? A clever, eager beaver. We're going to talk more about beavers today also. Let's look in the low brush. The low brushes. Who is living there? A web-weaving spider. Let's look in the thick brush. The thick brush. Who is living there? Do you see another little ear poking out? Who do you think it is? Shh. A silent resting fawn. We went to look for animal homes. Animal homes. We went out to see who's home. And oh, what did we find? We're standing at the picnic table under the trees at Hand Hollow. It's quite breezy here today. And we're looking at an area that has been impacted by beavers over the years. You can see that there is a dam where the water is being held back by sticks and mud. Sometimes people think that a beaver dam is where they live, but it actually just helps them create their home. The purpose of the dam is to hold the water back so it creates a pond. And a pond for beavers is kind of like their yard. It's where they go out and they play and they swim around. And then they also have little areas where they store things. So it's kind of like a yard with a storage shed. A family of beaver live in a lodge together. Usually the parents and their kits, the babies are called kits, and maybe even, a couple years worth of kits. So we're going to take a closer look at some areas at Hand Hollow that have had beaver activity over the years, and we'll talk a little bit more about how they build their homes. They live in the lodge that you can see in the distance. On the bank of the far shore, you can see a beaver lodge. And right now I'm holding my camera through the lens of my binoculars so you can get a good look. Because where the trail is at Hand Hollow does not go really close to this beaver lodge, and therefore you don't get a really good look at it. The important thing, or the interesting thing about a dam is all of those dead trees. So when a beaver builds a dam that creates a pond, generally what they're doing is they're taking a stream and cutting it off, and that pushes all the water back behind it to create a pond. And the pond will kill off trees that aren't meant to live in water. And you might think that that is not a great thing, but what it does is it creates another habitat for things like great blue herons. And so if you come here and have some binoculars, you can look into the trees, and there's a little pine tree in the foreground, and right behind it there's two dead trees in the background with two heron nests in it. And last year we had a couple of herons lay eggs and raise their young here, and so we're hoping that that happens again this year. Here's a picture of the nests from last year in those trees that you can see in the distance, and then a close-up view of when the chicks were starting to hop around and learn to fly. So if you take the main trail from the County Route 9 entrance, you'll come to a little area with a fork in the trail, and we're gonna head to the right where there's a little bench that you can see a nice little view of some of the beaver activity. Beaver are often referred to as being very busy, and they are. Basically, their main goal in life is to stop the sound of running water. As you can see, it might be a little hard to see because there's a number of trees that have grown up, but there is a dam that beaver built there, and there's some areas where it's been breached by water, and trees growing out of it help stabilize it. And then if we come over here on the other side of these pine trees, you can see this other area, this other dam that creates another pond here. So this is one area that they've worked to stop the water. And then in the background, you can see the Beaver Lodge. So when beavers build dams like this, it's not just good for them. This makes really great habitat for a number of other animals. So I talked about the great blue heron, who will nest in the dead trees. They'll create these big stick platform nests with trees or limbs of trees that they collect around, and they'll line them with moss and pine needles. And the beavers, when they create the dams, they build it up using big logs and mud and sticks. And for their lodges, they use similar material, but they build it so that it has a big, living room essentially, where they sleep and the kids play, and the entrance is underwater, but there's a big room inside that they can live in. And then they store their food in little areas outside called larders. And so in the winter, they've stored up in the fall all of this food underwater, and they can just swim out of their lodge and go and collect the food and bring it back to eat it. So what we have here is Beaver Activity, and you can see here, these are not too old. Actually, over in that one, you can see this is very recent because you can see that the color hasn't been distorted on the tree. So there's a couple of different species in here. There's beech, there is some alder. That area there, you can see we put up some chicken wire to deter them because that was a nice looking tree and we didn't want them to take that down. But what you can tell is they come in and they will just basically saw it off with their teeth and take it back into the water. And you can sort of see in this area there's a trail of beaver chews where they've come out of the water, which you can see in the background, come up on land. They do this at night and take down the trees and then drag them off. And generally they can take down a fair number of trees, especially of this size, in a night, and either use them to build the dam or the lodge or to store for food. This is video from a wildlife camera that we have out at Hand Hollow of the beavers working to fix the dam. As you can see, they're pulling branches out of the water and putting them into place to try to stop the water from flowing over it. So if you come back out and take the main trail around, you're going to come to a bridge. We're on the other side of that dam that we were just looking at before. And so you can see that the dam is sort of right here. And it's holding the water back to some extent. We do have a pipe that is allowing some of the water to go out because otherwise we would have a flooded trail. Over here you can see what was an old Beaver Lodge, and they may have abandoned it for any number of reasons. We have not seen much activity in there in a number of years by beaver, but this past winter we saw some tracks leading to and from of it from weasels, and otters, river otters might use it also because the nice little living room chamber is still in there and it creates a nice safe place to get away from predators. So even though the beaver might have abandoned that lodge, they likely built the one on the far side. Other animals will use them. So beaver are really great for a pond wetland ecosystem like this because they create homes for other animals. Thank you for joining us for another Little Explorers adventure here at Hand Hollow Conservation Area in New Lebanon. If you do come to Hand Hollow, you have two options for parking. So if the Route 9 parking lot is full, I would suggest going over to the Gale Hill Road parking lot, and you can find all of this information at clctrust.org. And please remember to share your photos and any interesting things that you see while you're out here at either Instagram or Facebook, and hashtag CLCTrust. And I hope you enjoyed learning about beavers and great blue herons with me and thinking about where animal homes might be.